new series. We've finished Evolution in Two Worlds from last Sunday. Now we're going to start talking about the Spiritist Review. And I'll go through the preface. So again, I am talking about Spiritism. We are bringing you a lot of information about Spiritism, and this is about the Spiritist Review of 1858. Very exciting. Let me bring this up. Let me hide this, and I'll bring up the live. There we go. Okay. So what we're bringing here now is the preface to the English edition. And the Spiritist Review was written and published by Allan Kardec from January 1858. He is the codifier of Spiritism. He is the person that wrote 1,019 questions, and he put them to different mediums through a different geographical area, mostly around Paris. But each medium did not know about the other medium. And what he did is he codified the answers only if duplicate mediums had the same or similar answers. Now, all these answers were organized with different spirits by the Spirit of Truth as promised by Jesus Christ. And let me show you where that was. Hide this for a second. If you love me, keep my commands, and I will ask the Father, and he'll give you another consoler to help you and be with you forever, the Spirit of Truth. The world cannot accept him because it neither sees him nor knows him. But you know him, for he lives with you and will be in you, which is John chapter 14, verses 15 to 17. And then on chapter 14, on verse 26, he says, But the Consoler, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you all things and remind you of everything I have said to you. Now that was fulfilled in the codification from information as organized by the Spirit of Truth. And then those 1,019 questions were then codified into the Spirit's book, which you can at any time, let me show this in the stream, you can just type in the Spirit's book space Allan Kardec, or you can just type in Allan Kardec space PDF. You can find all his books on PDF. So I would recommend that. Okay, let's start with the book, which I know is very exciting. Because now, I'll read the preface first, and then I'll talk about the book. But let's just talk about the preface. So, the Spiritist Review is written and published by Allan Kardec from January 1858 to April 1869. So they have a different, what they've done, they have a different book for each year of all those issues. Kardec died on March 31st, 1869. He had finished the April 1869 issue of the review, which was published after his death. In total, there are 160 monthly issues of the review, bundled in volumes of 12 issues per year, yielding 12 volumes. It is the largest Spiritist production of Allan Kardec. In the Medium's book, Part 1, Chapter 3, about the method, the author makes the following observation about the review. Diverse collection of facts, theoretical explanations, and isolated sections that complement the scope of what is found in the two preceding works, the Medium's book and the Spirit's book, forming in a certain way their application, meaning he got more information from different mediums meeting different spirits. While contemplating the two main books of the Spiritist doctrine and showing their most important applications, the review is indispensable to all those willing to have an in-depth understanding of Kardec's thoughts. It is the most comprehensive piece of work about the Spiritist movement in the 19th century, containing the formation and modus operandi of the Spiritist groups, as well as statistics about the number and distribution of followers around the world. So I'm only going to read, so let me just read it, the important parts. The whole world needs to know the grandiose work of Kardec. English has become the official language of the whole world. English is also the most important vehicle of dissemination of any science, which has adopted this language as their main mode of communication in all corners of the world. Needless to say, the Spiritist magazines were originally in French, and now they've been translated to English. Okay, now I'll go to page 7. So what I'm going to do is I will, excuse me, I'm not going to go through line by line, article by article. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through what I think is interesting, because quite I've read all the ones that have been available, and there is a lot of writing in here about things that really don't pertain to us anymore. There are notes on the organization of the Spiritist organization in the 1850s, and there's a lot of information that's not really pertinent to us. But on the other hand, there are gems, and I mean just amazing gems of information. And you'll see some of these things will parallel what you've seen in the Spirits book or the Gospel according to Spiritism or Genesis or the Book of Mediums, etc. But the other things that you don't see in those books, and they're very interesting. So let's go through the introduction. Now, this is, I think, is important because this is his first introduction on his first magazine, which is a monthly magazine that he had. Of course, this is in book form, and you can find this on Amazon. And you can also, I found this. You can find the one that I showed the cover on. Now, this isn't this one. This is a free PDF version that I downloaded. So, but you can find the paperback on Amazon just by putting the Spiritist Review 1858. You should find it if you would like to buy the book. And it was really nice of the United States Spiritist Society to do that translation. That is a lot of work. Okay, January 1858, introduction. The speed of propagation of the strange Spiritist manifestations all over the world is a demonstration of the interest they attract. Now, this is quite popular in the 1850s. It all started with table tapping. That's where people got around, had amateur meetings, held hands, whatever, called up the spirits, and the spirits would like tap the table or they would lift the table, and it just became this big fad. And Allan Kardec was part of that fad. And then he started thinking, well, how can this be? Because he checked the table, he wanted to see if there was something fake about it. He just didn't believe it. So he was pretty skeptical. Same as I. Before I had the episode where I was told certain things would happen in the future, which happened with great specificity, I wouldn't have believed any of this myself either. So that's why I can understand how he thought. Okay, the new ideas which stem from them became more popular daily, and nothing can stop their progress, as everybody, or almost everybody, can reach out for these phenomena, and no human power will impede their manifestation. If muffled at one point, they appear in hundreds of others. Therefore, who would find any given inconvenient in such manifestation would be embarrassed to suffer their consequences by the force of the facts, as the same happens in new technologies, which may hurt particular interests in the beginning, but gets naturally accommodated with time. And that is the future vision of Spiritism, that the tenets, the doctrine of Spiritism will be adapted by different religions and philosophies over time. And Spiritism is not a religion. It's not meant to replace religions, but it's meant to expose and to deliver the communication of the spirit world so other religions and philosophies can adopt, such as reincarnation, the impact of karma, etc. They can adopt these tenets. What was not said and perpetrated against magnetism. Now, when they say magnetism, they're really meaning spirit, the mediumistic ability. Oh, and maybe it also means hypnotism too. I have to read this because I've maybe forgotten. However, every blow against it, every weapon which hurt it, including ridicule, collided reality, and only served to give magnetism more evidence. Magnetism is a natural force, and facing natural forces, man is like a pygmy, like little dogs barking against everything that scares them away. What happens to somnambulism, but also happens to the spirit's manifestations, if they do not take place in daylight and publicly, nobody will preclude them from the happening in intimacy, as each family may find a medium in the household, from children to the elderly, as they can also find a somnambulist. That is, what if the first is to be found as a medium and a somnambulist? Who can preclude that? There is no doubt that the skeptics did not think about it. We insist that when a force is part of nature, it can only be temporarily stopped, but never eliminated. So what he's saying is this communication, which is from the spirit world to this physical world, is a force of nature. And that's because it was decided by Jesus Christ, who's in charge of the levels of heaven around the earth. He's also in charge of other planets. It decided that now was the time, 1850s up to our current time and beyond, is when they are opening up the gates of people who have mediumistic ability, and it will get more and more as the future course continues, and as we rise to harmony of this planet. Its course, however, may only be deviated, while the force revealed in the phenomena manifestations, whatever its cause may be, is part nature, and like magnetism and its accompanying electric force, will also not be destroyed. It is therefore necessary that those manifestations be observed and studied in all their phases in order to realize their governing laws. If it is an error and illusion, time will tell. If it is the truth, like compressed steam, will expand more than it is compressed. It is a surprising fact that in the Americas, only in the USA, there are 17 journals dedicated to the subject, not counting a large number of non-periodical publications. Whereas in France, the European country, where the ideas mostly found support, do not have one. It would be unnecessary to dispute the utility of a special organization to make the public aware of this new science and prevent it against their excess of credulity as well as skepticism. This is the blank which we propose to fill out with the publication of this review, aiming at providing communication media to those interested in these questions and to connect through a common bond those who understand the Spiritist doctrine from its true moral point of view, practice of good, and evangelical charity towards everyone. Now, it's interesting to people that this actually started, table tapping started with the Fox sisters in the United States, and it kind of came over to Europe. And then the United States is like Spiritist doctrine died out really quick. It was very effectively fought by different religious organizations, and very effectively fought even in Europe too. And it only really came back to where we're kind of back in evangelizing Spiritism with the great Brazilians that are helping bring Spiritism. And the Brazilians have gone back, gone in other countries and helped. And a lot of these wonderful Brazilians have come over here from Brazil, live in the United States, live in England, Europe, etc., that are helping spread Spiritism. Okay, it was only a simple collection of data. The task would be easy. These multiply everywhere with such a speed that would yield endless subject matter. But the facts on their own would become tedious by repetition, and especially by similarity. And so what he was talking about is there was just a explosion of people having medium meetings, society meetings, people meeting. It was very interesting. What is necessary to the thoughtful person is something that resonates to their intelligence. It was only a few years ago that the first phenomena manifested themselves, and already we are far from the turning and speaking tables, which represented their infancy. And we think speaking tables, you think of like a Ouija board where they're doing one letter at a time, and so on and so forth. Now, of course, with mediums, they psychograph, meaning that spirits surround them, put words in their mind, and they will write it down. They will speak. And other things. And then sometimes spirits can actually move their arms. And all this different types of mediumship is all in the medium's book. I'll carry on. Today, it is a science which uncovers the whole world and exposes the eternal truth that we're already sensed within our own spirit. It is a sublime doctrine that shows the path of duty to mankind and undercovers the widest field never presented to the observation of the philosopher. Had we stayed inside the narrow limits of an anecdotal review, our work would be incomplete and sterile, as the interest would have soon passed. It is possible that the denomination of science which we gave to Spiritism will be contested. That science would not have, without a doubt in any case, the characteristics of an exact science, and it's precisely in this aspect that those who intend to judge an experiment are in error, as if they were dealing with chemical analysis or a mathematical problem. The fact is that it is a philosophical science is already enough. Every science must be based on facts, but those by themselves do not constitute the science, which is born from the coordination and logic inference of the facts. It is a set of laws which govern those facts. Has Spiritism arrived at the state of science? If that means a completed science, no doubt it is premature to positively answer that question, but the observations are already in large numbers today to allow at least the deduction of the general principles and where science begins. Now, this was written in 1858, or published in 1858. in our day, there was a lot of information in spirituality, and I call it spiritism, but from the English scientists, there was a lot of information. Now, modernly, there are many people that are researching NDEs, near-death experiences, where they had a whole study in different hospitals in England where they interviewed people who had near-death experience. They would find a certain percentage, and they would actually see people that they were brought into the operating room uh, with no blood flow, right? And that's the definition of death. The heart stops, and yet they were able to describe what was in the hospital room without ever really awakening to the people there in the operating room. There's also studies going on where they'll have in a hospital room, they'll have pictures and stuff, and they'll come back and they'll ask them, "Did you see this when you were medically dead?" And then there've been studies by people that are having questioned mediums. There is one study where a scientist put in like a vacuum. And it was completely dark, and then they had like a full-time photon sensor, and then they would say, "Okay, put some light in this empty vacuum box at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning," or whatever, or 2 o'clock in the morning. And they did it even with the computer did random times, and then light would show up, and there had to be a spirit to do that, and it would sense that, and it was proving that yes, there's something else out there that's causing the photons to manifest themselves. And of course, everyone has reasons why that doesn't work or whatever, but some scientists are actually pursuing this. Okay, let me carry on. Our review. Oh, before I forget, Spiritism itself says that sometime in the future, that science will prove the existence of the soul and of the spirit world, and that it was even talked about in one of Chico Xavier's psychograph books, I think by Manuel, that the scientists, even if they're thinking that they're just don't believe in the spirit world, that their forceful, advancement of science will someday help prove this. Even though they don't know they're part of this grand project to prove the existence of the spirit world, they are. That's how subtle manipulation is done by the spirit world. When you think about that, it's very interesting. Our review will thus be a tribune where the discussion will never distance itself from the standards of the strictest conveniences. In one word, we will discuss, but we will not dispute. Language and conveniences have never been good arguments to the eyes of wise people. It is the weapon of those who do not have something better to offer, and which turn against those who use it. Among the phenomena which we will occupy ourselves have been more recently produced in a broader way. Everything demonstrates that they have been occurring since the remotest ages. Very true. Natural phenomena do not follow the same path as the inventions, which follow the progress of the human spirit. While those are in order of all things, their cause is as old as the world, and their effects must have been produced at all times. Think of the Oracle at Delphi. It is very strange things. They were correct many times. Therefore, what we witness today is not a modern discovery. It is the awakening of the ancient times cleared from the mystic enclosure that generated superstition, ancient times enlightened by civilizations and progress in the field of positive things. And of course, this is, I think, one of the things is stopping people from believing in Spiritism is we grow up in a culture that says, oh, ghosts and spirits, you're superstitious if you believe in that. That's just all in your mind. Of course, then many of us, me included, not that I've ever seen a ghost, it's just that things that happen that cannot be explained by our current level of science today, right? I was told things that were going to happen in the future that happened with great specificity. And the other thing happened after I became a spiritist is after my mother died, when I got a call at 1 o'clock in the morning, I went into her room, 7 o'clock that morning, and I just knew she was there. I could feel her completely, that she'd left her body, and she was like wandering around. And I said, Mom, look to the light, don't wander around here. Remember, we've talked about Spiritism. And that was another episode that made me believe there's something going on. We have a connection that our current science refuses to believe. Now, in ancient times, this was much closer, and in other cultures too. I shouldn't say ancient times, because in other cultures, it's like, yeah, this happens all the time. There's spirits, there's good spirits, there's bad spirits, spirits who mean us harm, spirits who mean us good, which is all true. And just me saying that, people can say, well, what is this guy saying? And the answer is yes. They're these people and people that came before us knew things and believe things that we have a hard time believing now. I certainly did until this stared me right in the face. But it's true. We are in this simulator called Earth, and there are communications back and forth between the physical universe, which is like a subjective, objective universe, meaning things are as we see them and as they are, versus the subjective universe where thought is action. And therefore, there are spirits roaming around in different levels. I can get much of that as you read about Spiritism. There are certain levels where spirits, depending upon their spirituality, can roam, and some they can't. So, and the people like the Egyptians were much more advanced in a lot of this stuff, and and other religions, and we go way back in different levels of the Atlanteans and Lemurians were very advanced on some of these things, but again, those civilizations were destroyed because they were more advanced technologically than they were spiritually, which is something that we were on a track, but hopefully it won't happen this time. Our world survived that 50-year space from 1969 when man went on the moon to 2019. So we did not have a nuclear war. And so I believe that means that we are on the path to become a planet of regeneration. This is all because the codification of Allan Kardec, many people that helped him, he was incarnated for this specific purpose. Okay. The communication with the invisible world is a fact unequivocally found in the biblical books. The Bible, however, on one hand, is not sufficiently authoritative to some skeptics. On another hand, to the believers, these are supernatural facts given by special favor of divinity. Have we not found those manifestations in thousand other diverse sources? They would not represent a proof of generality to everyone. The existence of spirits and their invention in the corporeal world is attested and demonstrated, not as an accessible fact, but as a general principle. St. Augustine, a lot of saints, and many other fathers of the church. That belief forms, moreover, in the basis of all religious systems. The wisest philosophers of the ancient times admitted them. Plato, Zoroaster, Confucius, Apuleius, Pythagoras, Apollonius of Tyana, and many others. We find them in the mysteries and oracles among the Greeks, Hindus, Chaldeans, Romans, Persians, and the Chinese. We see them surviving all the vicissitudes of the peoples, to all persecutions, challenging all the physical and moral revolutions of humanity. Now, what I always think is interesting after I learned about Spiritism is when you see, well, the Christians took this from Zoroaster, and the Buddhists took this from Confucianism, and so on and so forth, and how they adopted different parts and how they found out about them. They're not sure, but it's like, no. What they don't understand is, and God bless them all, they don't understand is these people, Plato, Zoroaster, Confucius, came at different times in different cultures and gave similar messages, but those messages were tailored to the technology and culture of which they were in the midst of. And therefore you have these small changes, but they didn't necessarily steal from each other. They were all playing from the same playbook with differences for their environment, because all these Socrates, etc., were very high-level spirits who were sent by Jesus Christ to come to earth to give us the same information. He gave it to himself when he came to Palestine, and tried to tell us about the truth of the spirit world. Now, even Jesus could not tell us the total truth because people weren't ready for it, and that's why we had Allan Kardec codify Spiritism, because we're more and more ready, and we've gotten more information as time went on. And that's what I'll do as I read through this. I'll say, what more information we've gotten from Spiritist mediums giving us more information. Okay. I don't want to get too much in this because that gets... Okay, next I want to go to page 11. Okay. Now, this is different forms of manifestation. This is what's wonderful about Allan Kardec, is he really was intellectually rigorous. And this is why the medium's book is for anyone interested in communication with spirit should read, and I mean really read and reread the medium's book, the Book of Mediums. And so it's just the most formative book I've ever seen. It tells all about different spirits, how to look at the different levels of spirits, how to detect it, etc. So anyone, and I get a lot of that. I get people like, how do I talk to my parents? And I said, well, first you have to read the spirits book. And then people say, well, but we're told by our church we can't talk to spirits. And you're told by the church you can't talk to spirits because the church has always been afraid that that demons will talk to you. Now, of course, demons are us. They are spirits, but ignorant spirits, retrogressive spirits. They will one time mean much better people. But again, so why are you cutting that off? I mean, all sorts of the early Christians talk to spirits all the time. We have our prophets in the church now talking to spirits and communicating with the spirit world, and actually being taken up in visions to the spirit world. So they talk to spirits constantly. The main thing is to understand and to study and raise yourself spiritually, because spirits will talk to the level of the spirituality of the person trying to talk to them. So if you have a very low person, let's say, is a medium, but is like a fortune teller and charges you $200 or $500 to tell you your fortune, they're going to have lower spirits talk to them. But if you have someone who doesn't worry about money and has a very high level of spirituality in their medium, they're going to give you much higher levels of communication. So people talk to spirits all the time. We try to ignore that in our culture, but everybody, maybe not everybody, most people know somebody who's talked to spirits, knows somebody that has said things in the future that's happened, or have had episodes that were like strange. And then even last study I read was like 25% of I think Christians believe in reincarnation, because people feel it. They've been here before. They've had thoughts. A lot of people have had previous life regression. So it's there. And this is what Spiritism explains to you, what that means. Okay. Different forms of manifestation. The spirits attest their presence in multiple ways according to their aptitude, will, and higher or lower levels. All phenomena that we shall analyze are naturally connected to one or another of those forms of communication. In order to facilitate the understanding of the facts, we believe it is our duty to initiate the series of our articles with a broad description of the forms of communication. They can be summarized as the following. Okay, now we're getting into really the information coming from Allan Kardec and his different organizations that are flowing information to him. He doesn't just everything from himself. He gets information from Spiritist mediums and meetings, etc. Number one, hidden action. Nothing is evident. These are, for example, the inspirations or suggested thoughts, intimate warnings, influences over events, etc. And we all have this. In the Book of Mediums, Allan Kardec, the spirits have told him that everyone is an inspirational medium, that all of us are inspired by different spirits, good, bad, and different spirits. A lot are we inspired, hopefully. We take their inspirations from our guardian angel. That's why everything that you think may not be originating from ourselves. They could be originating from a spirit, putting that into our mind. And then we have to filter everything through our conscience. that set of divine laws given to us. And that is really what I keep saying over and over again with in Spiritism, is the most important thing we can do is listen to our conscience and do what we think is right, what feels right. If you feel nervous or stressed when you have an idea like, oh, go ahead and have that extra drink, you're going to be okay driving home drunk. No, you're not. That's not a good idea. Don't follow that idea. That idea was probably given by a retrograde lower spirit, because they want to feel the effects of alcohol. So that's why you have to really watch. They also say the inspiration, that the people that we think of geniuses or wonderful inventors, they are actually mediums that are really developed, that their ability to receive inspirations. Okay, number 2, obvious action or manifestation, which when any of it is in a demonstrable way. Number 3, physical or material manifestations, those translated by noticeable phenomena, such as noises, moving objects. Frequently, those manifestations do not carry any message, having the only objective of attracting the attention to anything to convince us of the presence of a superhuman power. So people see this all day when they have like these things on TV or wherever. People write about ghosts and they hear things move. That is possible by spirits. Now, most of that is never malevolent, never meaning that bad things happen to you, but they will move things, they will do things. That is possible by spirits. 4, visual manifestations or apparitions, when the spirit shows itself under any form without bearing any of the known properties of matter. Number 5, intelligent manifestations, when the manifestations indicate an intelligent action that is revealed or exhibited through a thought process. Every manifestation which has a meaning, even a simple move or noise, indicating some freedom of action, corresponding to a thought or obeying a will, is an intelligent manifestation. They exist in all degrees. Number 6, the communications. These are intelligent manifestations aiming at an exchange of ideas between man and the spirits. The nature of these communications varies according to the superiority or inferiority of the manifesting spirit and the nature of the discussed subject. These can be frivolous, rude, serious, or instructive. Now, when I've been in part just along the wall, not a medium, but I've been in mediums meetings in Brazil, where the group of mediums are around the table and they will try to help spirits. And I have heard frivolous, rude, serious, or instructive. I've heard all those, where one spirit came in there and told us how all of us were rather stupid and laughed at us. And he was rude. Frivolous, where they would just like talk about things that didn't make sense. But then a lot of them were serious, that they wanted help, or instructive, or they asked for help, or they told us certain things. A lot of instructive comes from the spirits who are in charge of the meeting. And I've been in meetings where at the end of the meeting they say, okay, you guys did okay, but you need to improve. This is, and again, I can't stress this enough. When higher spirits talk to you, they are going to talk to you like that teacher you had that you really didn't like, let's say when you were in 7th grade or you're like 13 or 14, because they expected you to listen and learn and come up to the level that you should be. And then later on, when you were, in your 20s or 30s, you thought about that and you go, oh, that was actually a good teacher. But they didn't put up with your back talk. And they also made sure that, yeah, okay, you did some things good, but they told you what you need to improve on. That is the level of communication you will, not always, right? There are going to be other times and other ways, but that's going to be, if from a serious higher level spirit, you're going to get communication that is something that's meant to improve your spirituality, to teach you. It's not to amuse you, make you laugh, make you feel really proud of yourself. No, it's to help you get better, because that's why you're on Earth. You're not on Earth to have fun, accumulate toys and have a yacht and have all your desires met. No, you're on Earth to change your attitude and your character for the better. Get rid of your primitive emotions and get more advanced civilized emotions. Become more selfless, charitable, fraternal, and honest person. Okay. I'll carry on. The frivolous communications are given by mischievous, risky, and frolicsome spirits that are more rascal than evil. With these types of communications, we give no importance to what they say, and I've heard that. The rude communications are translated by expressions that shock decorum. They derive from inferior spirits or spirits not yet stripped from the impurities of matter. Yeah, the one person who was rude, who came in as a spirit and said that we were just a bunch of idiots. And so then the consoling medium, which is their consoling medium that talks to the trance medium, and says, "Well, why are you here? I mean, we're trying to talk to you about, getting into a better environment where there's love and where you can be much happier." And interesting, he said, he goes, "Well, we find our own love here," which shows you that, like anything, humans can adapt themselves to everywhere. And it's really not very good love. It's sarcastic, but he adapted to his environment down in that lower zone, which was very interesting when that person said that. Of course, then when he left, he laughed at us and called us all idiots. Which, fine. God bless him. I'll carry on. The serious communications are grave with respect to the subject and how they are formulated. The language of the superior spirits is always dignified and free of triviality. Every communication that excludes frivolity, rudeness, and has a useful objective, even if of a particular interest, is therefore serious. The instructive communications are the serious communications that have the objective of some sort of teaching, saying, given by the spirits about science, moral, philosophy, etc. These are the more or less profound and more or less truthful in accordance to the degree of elevation and dematerialization of the spirit. In order to take real advantage of these communications, they must be regular and followed with perseverance. Now, as an example of that, when he says more or less truthful in accordance to the degree of elevation. Now, there are, in what I've read, there's books like the Letters of Christ, for instance, which is in PDF. And this is purported to be from Christ talking through a medium. And I started to read. I've only read like the first letter, and I looked at that. Goes, no, I don't think that's true. Just the way he speaks, certain things he's left out, and Allan Kardec talks about this. There are levels of spirits who think they know a lot, but they're only at a certain level, and therefore they don't have the whole story, and they can't really give you the whole picture. And they will fill in the blanks by their own theories. Nothing, they're not evil. They're trying to help you. They're trying to give what they think is true. Therefore, when you read this is why I say, which is the power of Spiritism, because Spiritism takes that when you're a Spiritist medium and you're trained to speak to higher spirits, and then you really, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of, and I've been there. There's a lot of communication by spirits that don't know what they're talking about, and so you're really trained to get the communications from spirits who are organized by one of the ministers of Jesus Christ to tell you this is what we're telling you. And like the books that are psychographed by Chico Xavier, Leon Denis, Divaldo Franco, Yvonne Pereira, Chico Xavier, and Yvonne Pereira, Leon Denis, they've all passed away and are back in the spirit world. Marvelous ones. And you can find their books on print in Amazon and in the FEB bookstore. And you can go to the FEB bookstore. You go to my blog, nwspiritism.com, hit the picture on the right-hand navigation of Allan Kardec, and I'll take you to the FEB bookstore. In fact, if you look at the Spirits book, if you want those in paperback, they're actually less expensive than they are that you can get them on Amazon. Okay, I'll carry on. The serious spirits, let me make sure I'm on the right pages. Yes. The serious spirits associate themselves who want instruction and help. They leave to the frivolous spirits the task of engaging with those individuals who do not see in these manifestations as anything but a pastime. Only through regularity and frequency of communication can one appreciate the moral and intellectual value of the spirits with whom we entertain ourselves, as well as the degree of trust they deserve. If it is necessary to have experience to be able to judge men, it is even more so to judge the spirits. So again, this is what I tell people who want to talk to the spirits. And Allan Kardec says the same thing. I said, look, if you want to start talking to higher spirits, you need to meet or have hopefully there's more than one of you, but if it's just one of you, but have a set time, let's say 7 o'clock on Thursdays at night, and get a darkened room, not completely dark, but just a little bit of light, and sit and meditate, and have your paper and pencil ready, but just do that every Thursday at 7, because then read and study Spiritism, and that way you will be approached. You may be approached by frivolous spirits, but you'll be able to figure that out pretty quickly. But eventually, it may take a while. You'll be approached by higher level spirits that will say, okay, oh, this person's serious. So don't think you're going to meet once and go, oh, this didn't work. No, you sit there, you have the right time, you study, you meditate, you pray before you start, and that makes a big difference. Okay. Different types of communication. The intelligent communication between spirits and men may happen through signs, writings, and our verbal words. The signs consist of significant movement of certain objects, and more frequently of noises and vibrating raps. When these phenomena have some meaning, there is no doubt about the intervention of an occult intelligence. Thus, if every effect has a cause, then every intelligent effect must have an intelligent cause. Under the influence of certain persons, designated by the name of mediums, and sometimes spontaneously, as any given object may execute agreed movements, strike a number of times, and thus respond a yes or a no by a pre-established letter of the alphabet. The raps may be heard without any apparent movement and without any visible cause on the surface, in the tissues of the inert bodies, on a wall or stone. And from these objects, and for being more comfortable, given its mobility and the faculty which we accommodate around it. So this is talking tables, dancing the tables, etc. So we shall give this type of communication the name Spiritismology, which is an expression that provides a perfect idea and encompasses all the varieties of communication by signs, moving objects, and raps. Some of these I'm going to skip around because it's just not that interesting. The second mode of communication is the writing. We shall designate it by psychography. I think they're missing an O in that word. Also proposed by a member. This is really what we're seeing a lot today, is from Divaldo Franco and other mediums, where they'll write what spirits tell them. And there's Chico Xavier wrote more than 450 books. It's now up to 500 books. So they've taken some of his writings and the messages from others when he's giving information to people, and they've made books for him. So it's up to 500 books. When he was alive, it was more around 450. And they're just wonderful books. No Solar, I would recommend No Solar to everybody. It's the first book in a series by Andre Louise. They actually made a movie called Astral City or No Solar. You can rent it or buy it. I bought ours. I found it on Amazon. And then also, if you want to know more about Allan Kardec, there is a movie on Netflix called Allan Kardec, which talks about everything I'm reading here, how he started it, how he started talking to spirits, etc. And so find that movie on Netflix. Very good movie. Okay, in order to communicate through writing, the spirit employs as intermediaries certain endowed persons having the ability to write under the influence of the occult force which guides them, obeying a power evidently strange to their control, as they cannot stop, neither proceed, and in the majority of cases have no clue about their own writings. The hand is agitated by an involuntary movement, almost febrile. So this is he's talking about that is direct psychography. So which means that the hand moves, is the words aren't coming in the mind. It's just that they're using your hand to write. Writing is also obtained by the sole superimposition of the hands over an object conveniently attached to a pencil or other writing tool. And these are like baskets. So that's indirect psychography, which it still happens, although indirect psychography I don't think is much in use now. The communication is transmitted through psychography are more or less extensive according to the degree of the mediumic faculty. Some obtain only words, with others the faculty is developed through exercise, yielding complete written phrases and sometimes essays that are developed about proposed subjects. On occasion, the handwriting is clear and legible, and some other times it can only be deciphered by the medium, who then reads it through a kind of intuition or second vision. Now, sometimes when they do that, the ones that are, just through the hand, is like Chico Xavier. He'll do both, one through the mind and then they'll just use his hand, and they'll actually show that when he's had messages for like children or sons and daughters that die, he'll do a message. It'll be in the handwriting of that person, and the mother or father will look at it and go, "Oh my heavens, that's the handwriting of my son," and they'll compare it. It's amazing, the thing. Chico Xavier, he was just something else. I wish I got to meet him or be next to him. He was alive when I was there sometimes in Brazil, but I was never smart enough to go. Okay. From time to time, the spirits transmit certain written communications without direct intervention. In these cases, the characters are spontaneously sketched by superhuman power, visible or not. And that's pneumatography. Okay, the third mode of communication is oral word. Certain persons suffer the influence of an occult power in the vocal cords, similar to what is felt on the hands of those who write. They transmit by the spoken word everything that others do through the writing. So these will speak, and I've seen that when I've been in medium meetings. Okay, we get that. Semitology. Okay, I don't think we need to read that. Okay, spirit answers to a few questions. Question: how can spirits act upon matter? So these are things he's had in medium meetings, and so he's gotten answers to these. So he's asking these questions. This seems contradictory to everything we think about the very nature of spirits. So the answer is, based on your assumptions, a spirit does not consist of anything materially based. This assumption is not correct. We have already told you that the spirit is something and therefore can act on its own, because your world is materially dense to allow him to communicate without an intermediary. It is this intermediary that serves as a link that attaches the spirit to matter. And that is his observation. Considering that the link uniting the spirit to matter is immaterial, or at least intangible, this answer would not have addressed the issue if we did not have the example of other equally intangible forces that act upon matter. Take the case of our thoughts. The primary cause of every voluntary movement is electricity that lifts up, knocks down, and transports inert matter. Just because the cause is unknown, is illogical to conclude that this does not exist. Now, let me give you my own observation. Is we are here on Earth, and we are considered very dense physical bodies. That means we have a lot of matter and very little energy. But as the spirit rises in the hierarchy, is they become more energy, a higher ratio of energy to matter. So a spirit in the dark abyss is still, to us, very ethereal, very not dense. We can't see them. Some of us, some people can see them, but they are more dense. They're not completely not there. They're just less dense. And then as they go to lower zone, they have a little bit more energy, but they have still the majority of matter. And then as spirits go into different levels of heaven, they become more and more energy than matter. And that is why when a lower spirit cannot go up a level, because when they go, they can't get themselves used to that environment, and the amount of light is too strong for them. They're like blinded. They feel uncomfortable. And that is the law of affinity. You can only go where you fit. So a spirit is not composed of nothing. It's composed of something, but that something is such of a different composition that we don't see it. And remember, spirits have told us we only see about 1/8 of what is around us. We were put on this earth not to accumulate everything, not become a genius or whatever. We're put on this earth to have stimuli hit us so we can change our character and our attitude and rewire our brain to become a nicer person. Therefore, we can't see all this. Now, some people can see spirits. I've met people that can see spirits. Okay, question. Among the spirits who produce the material effects, there are those we commonly call the rapping spirits. Are these spirits from a special class, or are they the same who produce the movement noises? And the answer is certainly the same spirit may produce multiple effects. But there are those associated more particular certain things. Like among you, there are blacksmiths and the couriers. Question. Does the spirit who act upon a solid object in order to move or rap penetrates inside the substance of the body or acts from the outside? The answer is one and the other. We've already said that matter is no obstacle to spirits, so as they can penetrate everything. So spirits can move through walls. A wall here, a door is nothing. It's not a problem. And in fact, we know that through like atoms, we know that a wall is there's a lot of space between atoms. Question: do the material manifestations, such as noises, movement of objects, and other phenomena which we provoke, indistinctly produced by superior as well as inferior spirits? The answer is it is only the inferior spirits who occupy themselves with such manifestations. The superior spirits sometimes employ them as you would do with a courier in order to attract attention. Would you believe that spirits of a superior category are at your service to please you with their tricks? This is the same asking if in your world the serious and wise men are the ones who play the role of clowns and jesters. So there you have it. And that is true. They have all sorts of things. And that higher spirits will say, oh, no, you do this. And in fact, I've even instances where this group of spirits came down into this city in the lower zone, and they said, okay, you, the leader of the city, you have been terrible. You're actually going to go lower. And then these soldiers came from a city that knew that that guy would be there, and they would take him down. And the guy and the medium asked, well, how could they that? And they go, how could those guys know that the command would be to take this person and bring him down to a lower level? And the guy says, don't you think that Jesus is in control of everything? Jesus is in control of the spirit world. That means everything. The lower zone, what we call hell or purgatory, he controls everything. And he gave that person orders through some sort of intuition or something, said, go pick that guy up. So this is how it works. There's a lot there. And you're thinking, how can that be? If there's evil down there, why doesn't he just fix it? No, because we have free will. And the way the spirit world takes care of evil is they use evil to fight evil. So if you're a bad person, guess what? When you pass over, you get to be with other people like you. And then you finally get to the point where, oh, I don't like being with other people like me. I might have to change. Simplistically, I put that, but that's kind of the summary. Okay, how can one improve the question? How can one prove that the occult power acting in the spirit manifestations it's outside of man? Couldn't we think that they reside in ourselves? That is, we act under the impulse of our own spirit. And so the answer is when something is done against your will and desire, it means that it is not you who is producing it. Although many times you are the lever used by the spirit to act, and your will would come to help. In this case, you can serve as a convenient tool to the spirit. Question: are all spirits capable of giving intelligent manifestations? The answer is yes, as all of them are intelligent. However, because there are spirits of all degrees, as among you, some say senseless or stupid things and other shrewd things. Again, this is when we're talking about when people communicate with spirits, and I understand why a lot of organized religions don't want that. First, because you can talk to ignorant and spirits that mean you harm, but also because a lot of these religions don't want you to do that because they wanted to control you and not have you find out things on your own. Question: are all spirits capable of understanding the questions addressed to them? And the answer is no. The inferior spirits are incapable of understanding certain questions, which does not impede them from answering right or wrong. It's the same among you. Yes, you have people that will just answer anything, even though it's garbage, right? We've all seen that. And here's his observation. Consequently, one can see how essential it is to be alert against the belief in the endless knowledge of the spirits. Now that is something you need to understand. Just because you're talking to a spirit doesn't mean that when you die, you don't become this wise, all-knowing angel. No, when you die and pass over, you are who you are. And no, just because a person is a spirit doesn't mean they have this endless knowledge and they know God. No, that doesn't happen. I'll carry on. They are like men, and it is not enough to question the first that shows up to obtain a wise answer. It is necessary to know whom we are directing our attention. Someone interested in knowing the customs of people have to study them from one extreme to the other side of the scale. Investigating only one class is to have a false idea, as judging the whole by the part. The spiritual population is like ours. There is everything: the good, the evil, the sublime, the trivial, the knowledgeable, and the ignorant. Those who have not observed them seriously on all levels cannot boast of knowing them. The physical manifestations reveal to us the spirits of lower levels. These are the street and the shanty. The instructive and wise communications bring us in contact with the superior spirits. They are the social elite, the upper class, and the working class. So I will stop there, and I hope this has been of interest to you. I find that the knowledge in this book is just fantastic, and I will each week after I finish what I've done on Sundays, I'll come up with what we're going to go through for the next week. And so if you and again, as we're going here, don't hesitate to ask me questions, and I will try to answer them as I go. So type in those questions if you like. I believe that this is something that will really show you what is the spirit world and what it means to us. It's so much more complex and complicated, and it's multi-layered, and it's fantastic. And the more we understand it, the more we understand our own life, our own place, our own feelings and emotions. And as we go through different trials and tribulations, we can be more calm and cool about things because we understand why we're here and what our purpose is. So if you'd like to really start learning about Spiritism, first go through, read the Spirits book, download my free PDF, Spiritism 101, the Third Revelation. But also, if you'd like a good kind of synopsis of everything that I've found out so far, is read the Spirit Realm. And I talk about the spirit universe, the physical universe, spirits, how spirits learn, your physical existence, Jesus, who is Jesus, how we're guided, how the future of Earth is going to be. All that is in how we can ascend. All that is in my book, The Spirit Realm. Spiritism has revealed the reality of our existence. So I want to say thank you for everybody.